Preparing for an Operations Analyst at JPMorgan India interview. You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 15 key questions you're likely to face. For each one, you'll see what the interviewer is testing, the core concepts you should cover, and a sample answer. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. Walk me through the trade life cycle from execution to settlement. The interviewer wants to assess your understanding of capital markets operations, front-to-back processing, settlement risk, and how an operations analyst supports trade accuracy and timely completion. While answering, focus on trade capture, confirmation, validation, clearing, settlement, reconciliation, exception management, and why breaks must be resolved quickly to protect clients and the firm. Trade lifecycle is the end-to-end journey of a transaction, from execution to final settlement and reporting. In operations, I would look at trade capture, confirmation, validation, clearing, settlement, reconciliation, and exception management. For example, if an equity trade is executed today, operations ensures details match between counterparties, cash and securities move correctly, and any breaks are escalated before they create client, market, or regulatory risk. Question 2. Why do you want to join JPMorgan as an operations analyst in India? This question evaluates your motivation, knowledge of JPMorgan's global operations model, and whether you understand the importance of India CoE teams in supporting clients and markets. Make sure to cover JPMorgan's scale, controls culture, global exposure, technology-driven operations, client impact, and why Bengaluru, Mumbai, or Hyderabad operations roles fit your skills and career goals. I want JPMorgan because operations here is not just back-office processing. It supports global markets, payments, asset servicing, risk controls, and client delivery at scale. India CoE teams work with multiple regions, so the learning curve is strong. I'm attracted to the combination of process discipline, technology, and market exposure. My analytical mindset, attention to detail, and ability to work under timelines fit well with an operations analyst role. Question 3. What is reconciliation, and why is it important in banking operations? The interviewer is testing your understanding of operational controls, data comparison, break identification, financial accuracy, and the risk that unreconciled balances create for a bank. In your answer, talk about matching internal and external records, identifying breaks, investigating root causes, clearing aged items, and the link between reconciliation, risk control, and financial reporting. Reconciliation means comparing two sets of records to ensure they agree. In banking operations, that could be internal ledger versus custodian statement, trade system versus broker confirmation, or cash account versus bank statement. If there is a mismatch, it becomes a break. The analyst investigates whether it is timing, booking error, missing trade, fee issue, or settlement failure. Good reconciliation protects client assets, prevents financial misstatement, and strengthens operational control. Question 4. If you find a cash break near market close, what steps would you take? The interviewer wants to assess your exception handling, prioritization, escalation discipline, risk awareness, and ability to work calmly under time-sensitive operations pressure. Be sure to mention validating the break, checking source systems, identifying value date and amount, contacting stakeholders, escalating material breaks, documenting actions, and avoiding assumptions. First, I would confirm the break is genuine by checking amount, currency, value date, account, and source feeds. Then I'd review recent trades, payments, fees, corporate actions, and manual entries to identify the likely cause. If the amount is material or close to cutoff, I would alert my supervisor and contact the relevant settlement, treasury, or counterparty team. I'd keep evidence, update the tracker, and ensure clear handover if unresolved. Question 5. Explain T+1 or T+2 settlement in simple terms. This question evaluates your grasp of settlement conventions, transaction timing, cash and securities movement, and how shortened settlement cycles affect operations teams. While answering, focus on trade date versus settlement date, delivery of securities, payment of cash, operational deadlines, exception resolution, and why faster settlement reduces risk but increases urgency. T is the trade date, and the number shows how many business days later settlement occurs. In T+1, a trade executed on Monday settles on Tuesday. In T+2, it settles on Wednesday, assuming no holidays. Settlement means the buyer pays cash and the seller delivers securities. Shorter cycles reduce counterparty and market risk, but they also compress the time available for confirmation, funding, instruction matching, and resolving exceptions. Question 6. What controls would you follow before processing a high-value payment? The interviewer is testing your risk mindset. Maker-checker awareness, payment controls, fraud prevention, sanction sensitivity, and ability to balance speed with accuracy. Make sure to cover authorization, beneficiary validation, account details, currency, value date, sanctions or compliance checks, dual approval, callback if required, and audit trail documentation. For a high-value payment, I would not rely only on speed. I'd validate the instruction source, beneficiary name, account number, currency, amount, value date, and supporting documentation. I'd ensure approvals are in place under the delegation matrix and that maker-checker control is followed. If required, I'd check sanctions or payment screening status and perform callback controls. Finally, I'd document the evidence so the transaction is fully auditable. Question 7. How would you handle a situation where your daily queue has more work than you can complete before cutoff? This question evaluates prioritization, communication, ownership, stakeholder management, and whether you understand cutoff-driven risk in banking operations. In your answer, talk about ranking items by risk, cutoff, client impact, value, regulatory importance, informing the manager early, requesting support, and keeping accurate status updates. I would first prioritize items based on market cutoff, client impact, value, risk, and regulatory importance. Anything that affects settlement, funding, or client reporting would move to the top. I'd inform my manager early instead of waiting until the deadline, explain the volume and risk, and ask whether tasks can be redistributed. I would update the queue status clearly, avoid shortcuts, and ensure any pending items have proper handover notes. Question 8. What is the difference between a trade break and a cash break? The interviewer wants to assess whether you can distinguish common operations exceptions and explain how different break types affect settlement, accounting, and client records. Be sure to mention that trade breaks involve transaction detail mismatches, while cash breaks involve money movement or balance differences, and both require investigation, ownership, and timely resolution. A trade break usually relates to transaction details not matching, such as quantity, price, security identifier, trade date, settlement date, or counterparty. A cash break relates to differences in cash balances or movements, such as missing payments, incorrect fees, FX differences, or timing mismatches. Both are important, but the investigation path differs. Trade breaks can prevent settlement, while cash breaks can affect funding, client reporting, and ledger accuracy. Question 9. Tell me about a time you found an error in your work or someone else's work. This question evaluates integrity, attention to detail, accountability, communication style, and whether you raise issues transparently rather than hiding operational mistakes. While answering, use a clear situation action result structure. Explain how you identified the error, corrected it, informed stakeholders, and improved the process to prevent recurrence. In a college project, I noticed that a financial model's total expenses were not linking correctly to the summary sheet. Instead of only fixing the number, I traced the formula, identified the broken link, and informed the team before submission. We corrected the file and added a final cross-check tab for key totals. The result was a cleaner submission and a better review process. I learned to flag errors early and focus on prevention. Question 10. How do corporate actions affect operations teams? The interviewer is testing your awareness of asset servicing, event processing, client entitlements, data accuracy, deadlines, and downstream impact on positions and cash. Make sure to cover dividends, stock splits, rights issues, mergers, mandatory versus voluntary events, entitlement calculation, client elections, record date, ex-date, payable date, and reconciliation. Corporate actions affect the securities and cash positions clients hold. For example, a dividend creates a cash entitlement, while a stock split changes the quantity of shares. Operations teams capture event details, validate dates, calculate entitlements, process elections for voluntary events, and reconcile custodian or market data. Accuracy is critical because a missed or incorrect corporate action can directly impact client holdings, cash balances, NAV, and reporting. Question 11. What do you understand by KYC and AML in banking operations? This question evaluates your understanding of financial crime controls, client onboarding, regulatory obligations, documentation review, risk classification, and ongoing monitoring. In your answer, talk about identity verification, beneficial ownership, source of funds, risk rating, sanction screening, transaction monitoring, suspicious activity escalation, and regulatory compliance. KYC is about knowing who the customer is before and during the relationship. It includes verifying identity, address, ownership structure, beneficial owners, and risk profile. AML focuses on preventing the banking system from being used for money laundering, terrorist financing, or sanctions breaches. In operations, that means reviewing documentation, screening names, monitoring unusual activity, escalating red flags, and keeping records updated. It protects both the institution and the financial system. Question 12. How comfortable are you with Excel, and how would you use it in an operations analyst role? The interviewer wants to assess your practical data handling ability, comfort with large files, analytical discipline, and readiness for daily reporting and reconciliation tasks. Be sure to mention functions such as XLOOKUP, pivot tables, filters, conditional formatting, text functions, basic data validation, error checks, and using Excel without compromising control. I'm comfortable using Excel for cleaning, comparing, summarizing, and validating data. In operations, I would use filters and pivots to analyze cues, XLOOKUP or index match to compare records, conditional formatting to highlight exceptions, and text functions to standardize references. I'd also use control totals to ensure nothing is missed. For repetitive work, I would look for automation opportunities, but I'd still preserve review checks and auditability. Question 13. If a counterparty claims they sent settlement instructions, but your system shows nothing, how would you resolve it? This question evaluates your investigation approach, communication with external parties, evidence-based decision-making, and understanding of settlement instruction matching. While answering, focus on checking internal cues, message references, timestamps, account details, SWIFT or platform status, counterparty evidence, escalation paths, and documenting each action. I would first check our internal settlement platform, message queues, exception reports, and any pending or rejected instructions. Then, I'd ask the counterparty for evidence such as message reference, timestamp, account, security, quantity, and settlement date. If the instruction was sent but rejected, I'd identify the reason and coordinate correction. If it never reached us, I'd escalate through the agreed channel. Throughout, I'd document the timeline and keep stakeholders informed. Question 14. What does risk and control mean to you in an operations environment. The interviewer is testing your understanding of operational risk, control frameworks, process discipline, issue escalation, and JPMorgan's emphasis on reducing errors and protecting clients. Make sure to cover operational risk events, maker-checker controls, reconciliations, approvals, access controls, SOPs, audit trails, escalation, root cause analysis, and continuous improvement. Risk in operations is the possibility that an error, process failure, system issue, or external event causes financial loss, client impact, or regulatory breach. Controls are the checks that prevent or detect those issues. Examples include maker-checker review, reconciliations, approvals, access restrictions, exception reporting, and documented procedures. A strong control mindset means I don't just process tasks. I ask what could go wrong, how we detect it, and how we prevent recurrence. Question 15. How would you explain a failed trade settlement to a non-technical stakeholder? This question evaluates communication clarity, stakeholder management, ability to simplify technical issues, and awareness of business impact without using unnecessary jargon. In your answer, talk about explaining the cause, impact, ownership, expected resolution time, next steps, and using simple language while avoiding blame or unsupported conclusions. I would explain it in business terms first. A failed settlement means the trade was agreed, but the cash or securities did not move successfully on the expected date. Then I'd state the known reason, such as unmatched instructions, insufficient securities, funding issue, or counterparty delay. I'd clarify the impact, who is working on it, and the expected resolution timeline. I would avoid blame and keep updates factual, concise, and action-oriented. If you are still with us, congratulations. You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.